Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us to Leading the Way, where we're talking about dialogue on networking and leadership today. And I have two leaders with me today, Darren Mann and Randy Quinonez, and both of whom are John Maxwell team members. Darren is also has been a project manager for a very long time, but he prefers to talk about his leadership pathways and how he's moved into that direction and has helped a lot of people build value through his leadership skills. And with even over 14 years of successful experience in the project management, he likes to put the best of both worlds. And I also have Randy with me, who is also a John Maxwell team member. Randy is the author of Pain to Power. And he's also has an extensive experience in leadership, and he brings his valuable personal experience as well to leadership. And today we're going to talk about all of this, and we're going to talk about what is leadership. First of all, I'd like to start always with what is leadership? What does it mean to people? And since it seems to be a very confusing topic for some. And then we'll talk about networking. What does that look like? Why do we even do it? So I'm Nagamal Samari, and welcome Darren and Randy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Glad to be here, Nagam. Thanks for inviting us.
Mhm.
Of course, I couldn't have better two leaders. All right, I'm going to start with you, Darren. Um, so let's start with this first basic question because I know I laughed about it and I said people get confused with leadership, but it is true when you say to someone you're a leader or you say the word leadership, people kind of become apprehensive a little bit and think that's they're not talking about me. So first of all, we'll start with what does leadership mean to you?
It's a great question, Nagam. I guess leadership means to me, wow, it's a very good question. Um, it means it means to me, when I really got a hold of leadership, I started to live differently. I started to lead myself differently, and I think leadership starts with yourself. That's the first thing about leadership is you have to lead yourself before you can really lead others. So I think that's the first thing that I had to really realize. In order to lead others, you have to first lead yourself. And I think the second part of it is that leadership is influence. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so it's about anyone can be a leader. If you're a mother, you're a leader. If you are in your, you're just a neighbor, you're a leader. Wherever have influence, that's where you're a leading. So that's really what it means. It's that ability to influence other people, to get them to do something that maybe you want them to do, or it could be just at their grocery store. So there's many different ways that we influence, but I think that's the key point of leadership is the ability to influence for an expected outcome.
Wonderful. And I'm going to ask the same question to you, Randy, because I'd love to hear your experience, how you bring that in into leadership. So what does leadership mean to you?
Right. When you first brought up the question, you kind of said that a lot of people have confusion about that topic, that title, that definition, description. I was one of them, and Darren said about John Maxwell, who is the leadership guy, the guru, our coach. I liked his definition when he said that leadership is influence, and how you get influence over people is by adding value to them. And I also like when Darren said that you have to be able to lead yourself first. You have to walk like you talk. You have to be a person of trustworthiness and integrity, or why would anybody follow you if they don't see? Lead by example. If they don't see you
Mhm.
doing the very thing you're if I'm asking Darren to dig a ditch, I need to bring two shovels, hand him one, jump in the ditch first, and then start digging. So I think leadership is to lead by example. I think leadership is having influence over other people, and I think the way you get influence is by adding value to the people that you are responsible for in terms of being a leader.
Oh, both excellent, excellent responses. And I think you did such a great job answering that question in your own perspective. And I think it's important that we realize leadership means a lot of different things to a lot of people. And yes, it is influence, but it also starts with yourself. You have to influence yourself. You have to be able to be a role model to others and then be able to lead. And I love both of your responses, and I think you put it very well together. And I continue asking this question to everybody I meet because everybody has their own response. But let's all agree, though, you don't have to have a rank in a position and a title in order to be a leader. Let's answer that question first, because a lot of people think you have to be a CEO or a supervisor of someone to be a leader. So Darren, I'm going to bring it back to you, and let's talk about this for a quick second before we move on and talk about networking, because it's people, anyone can be a leader, and we say this, but there is still this connotation to leadership that you have to attach yourself to a certain position. So let's go ahead and talk about this for a second.
So about the fact that leadership not being a position. Yeah, I've been a leader for a number of years. I'm a project manager, as you mentioned. And a lot of project management, you don't have direct authority over anyone, but you have to lead by influence. I have to lead, um, through being able to influence others, being able to. I've done a lot of volunteer work as a pastor and in the church, and a lot of things to get people, volunteers to get things done. You have to be very good at influencing people. And what I mean by that is you have to be able to treat people the right way. Randy said it, eloquently, adding value to people. And so a lot of times, like I was saying, in that church position, I don't necessarily have authority. Maybe I'm just doing a volunteer position, but I'm getting a whole team of people to do something. And so, um, you know, I think someone told me once, if you want to see if you're a good leader, take on a volunteer position, become a volunteer leader, volunteer
Mhm.
somewhere. If you want to see if you're a good leader or not, and you can get people to do things, if you volunteer and you take on a volunteer leadership role, you'll see how good of a leader you are. So I think that's important, is being able to lead someone, that you're not making any money, there's no money involved, but you're getting people to do things from a volunteer place. So I think that's one of the things I want to say about that. Yeah.
Great perspective. Awesome. Thank you. Randy, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with you that you do not need a position or a title or to be the boss's nephew or son in order to be a leader. I have run into some leaders and worked for some leaders that have the titles, the degrees, the diplomas, and the position, who are excellent leaders. However, you do not have to be in a position where you have the formal title. I think one thing of two things that make a leader worthy of following. One of them is competence, 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 competence. I think that's so important when somebody knows how to do what they say they are asking others. Somebody that just has answers and knows were to take you to help you get over the challenge that you may facing, or whatever fear is stopping you, or how do I do this, and where do I start, and are you sure I could do a bit? So I think competence counts. The other one is confidence. Why would anybody follow you if you don't have confidence? When you believe in you have to believe in yourself before other people can believe in you. So the confidence and the competence, that combination is what helps somebody in becoming a leader. The last one, let me add a third leg to that, and that is people skills. You gotta get into people's hearts before you can hold their hand and go ahead and lead them. I think people skills is super duper important. You cannot talk down to people. You got to meet people where they are, and and that probably is the hallmark of compassion that marks a leader's personality.
Excellent points. You when you're doing something and you don't have the title to attach to that something, and people just follow you still, back to what Darren was saying, I think that's a true testament to your leadership, right? You don't, you're just doing something and people come to you for advice, or they come ask you questions, or they do as you do without having that position or title. That is the influence we're talking about. And it shows that you've got the capacity, you've got the competence, right? And I think some people, a lot of people, I'm going to say, don't have don't necessarily have the confidence or the people skills. And but these things, the good news is you could work on all of this. This is all something you can actually practice and learn, and be able to get to a level to where you've got all these things and you're ready to rock it. I just met with someone today, and this is what, I don't know if you've ever have seen any of Sean Lee's talks, but he's the Rocket Man. And if you haven't, Google him. And I saw him today, and he was rocket, rocket after every sentence, and it stuck with me. So now I want to lead into, now that we've talked about leadership, I want to lead into networking. It's important for leaders to increase their network. I want to start with the technicalities here, but I want to first define what is networking. That's one of those things where it's kind of like leadership, where people think networking or hear the word networking, and it could be translated in many different ways. It could be just, passing business cards back and forth, or just, having that list of, people to go to when you need something. What does networking involve? What does it look like? I'm going to start with Darren.
Yeah, for me, networking is connecting with people for a mutual purpose. And that can be in different forums. That could be at a conference. That could be, it could be at a Toastmasters event. It could be at a lot of different places. It could be at the grocery store. So it's connecting with people to have a mutual purpose. It could be for business. I'm connecting with someone and we're going to do business together. I'm connecting with someone and we're going to go out for coffee. That's all networking. That's simply connecting with people for a mutual purpose. That's what I say networking is.
All right, thank you, Randy.
Building relationships. So when I hear the word networking, I think of the word social networking. I think of the word social gathering, social activities, and it comes in many different platforms or forums. But and when I think of networking, I think of building relationships. I got a guy I am a pastor as well, and I pastor a church, and I am an author, I'm a life coach, and I'm also a drug counselor, and that's the longest tenure. I've been doing drug counseling for 23 years. And I'm a speaker. And one of my mentors, I asked him the question, because I ask a lot of questions, which is how you network. One of your questions in there is, how do you network? So I asked a lot of questions, and I asked him the question, And I said, give me one. I always ask this question. I said, give me one success principle. And he crossed his hands like this. He went like this. He said, crosswalks, crosswalks. I said, give me one success principle. He said, Pastor Randy, crosswalks. I said, what does crosswalks mean? He said, relationships. Crosswalks are relationships to get you to the other side where you want to go. I said, how do you
Mm.
develop relationships? He says networking events. It's all connected. So for me, networking in the simplest form will be develop, build, strengthen a variety of relationships with different people. You only get a limited slice of the pie in life if everybody in your circle looks like you, talks like you, walks like you, does what you do, or comes from your background. So relationships.
Wow, excellent. I consider myself a novice networker because I am just learning about this concept myself and seeing the value of it. Being somebody who felt really shy for most of my life, it was hard for me to start a conversation with someone, let alone not knowing what actually I have to do in networking, thinking that I have to go into an event and, like I was saying earlier, exchange business cards, talk about what I do, pitch my whatever, right? And now I'm getting to the point to where I have a better understanding of networking, and it is making that connection with others, and it is building the relationship, not because you want to, offer something. It's just because you want to build that relationship. So I'm going to ask. This is a great place for me to ask you both. I'm going to ask you different questions on this. So, Darren, starting with you. So, leaders, it's important to network to expand that network, right? But why do you believe networking is crucial for someone in a leadership position?
Yeah, I believe that if you cannot lead people, you have to have a relationship with people that you lead, right? So leadership is about people. It's about having relationships with people, as Randy said. But if we're not connecting with people, we cannot lead or influence them. I heard this proverb once, and I think John Maxwell quoted. He said, "He who thinks he leads but has no followers is only taking a walk." And I like that. I like that proverb. But I think it's important in order to, the importance of networking. Um, a leader has to always be networking. I like another quote, and something that I do. I lead a young adults group, and John talks about walking slowly through the crowd. So when we have our time of fellowship at the end of our meetings, I'll walk slowly through the crowd, and I will talk to different individuals. Maybe it's a little 2-minute conversation, a little 3-minute conversation there, but it's really networking, seeing how people are doing in the room.
Mhm.
And that's part of leadership, is connecting with different ones, seeing how they're doing, catching up on them, and catching up with them, and ensuring that everyone is doing okay, right? Not just talking to one person. I think that's what networking is you're talking to different people in the room.
Wow, I love that. I don't think I've ever heard it in that way, to where you're checking up on people. I think that's a new perspective. Thanks, Darren. Randy, how has networking influenced your own leadership style and decisions?
Yeah, it gave me new ideas about authenticity and vision, and to lead by example and to be vocal. In the beginning of my leadership journey, when I started becoming a person of influence, I was more of a lead by example type guy. And then as I started networking with other leaders, I seen the value of being vocal. Some people need to have something said to them. At conversation, I heard Steve Harvey say this one time. He said, conversation feeds the soul. The Bible says man cannot live by bread alone. We need words. Words, they feed, they develop us. And I think networking with other leaders is allowing me to get exposed. We don't know it all. We want to remain a student for the rest of our life, and you want to stay current with the trends. So I think those things is how I have been influenced by networking with other leaders. It gives me new ideas, helps me stay current. It taught me a new skill to be a little bit more vocal, otherwise, other than just staying or leading by example. And that's what I try to implement. And I like, I'm comfortable in that role now. Not as far as like a
Mhm.
drill sergeant all in your ear, disrespectful. No, no, I'm talking about more as using the word we. We could do this. We could do this. Let's go. We got a dream. We're accomplishing something. We. Because when
Mhm.
you say you, it erects a wall between you and the person you're trying to get, penetrate your words that give him the insights and the experiences, the knowledge. When you say you need to do this, it erects a wall between you and the person. And I found that when you say the word we, words have power, and we makes
Yeah.
you feel more included.
Wow. You made me think, Randy. I attended it was a virtual event where I watched two mayors speak, and one really resonated with me because one simple word, we. And the
Yeah.
other was talking about it, and it is so powerful. And you do I don't think many people understand the power of we until they actually hear two speeches one after the other, with one mentioning saying we and the other talking about themselves. And you feel a part of something bigger when you hear that word. So it's so powerful.
Yeah,
um
there's a and Darren, you're a man of quotes, and so am I. There's a quote that goes like this: the difference between illness and wellness is replacing the I with the we.
oh, I love
Yeah.
this.
The difference between illness and wellness is
That's good.
replacing the I with the we. We. The way we're gonna get better is we. When you say I, you stay in isolation, and isolation rots the mind.
Mhm.
Amazing. Amazing. And you know what, Randy? There is no networking without we.
Yeah.
There
Yes.
are no
Yes.
there are no letters that match what I'm saying, but you don't network without we. You can't
Yeah.
do it by yourself. There's no
That's
such
right.
thing.
That's right.
That's right.
I love it. I love it. All right. Keep bringing that. Darren, so
Mhm.
I want you to share a pivotal moment in your career that was significantly influenced by a networking opportunity.
Yeah, I attended my first International Maxwell Conference in person in March of this year. And I met one of my mentors in person at the conference. And I had been on calls with him, and I said, if I get the opportunity, I'm gonna ask him to coach me if I ever get that opportunity. And one of the things that John Maxwell talks about is he says, um, get out of the people pile.
Mm,
He says that a lot, get out of the people pile. So
yeah.
one of the things that I determined to do when I get on these Maxwell calls is I'm going to ask a question. Every time I get on a call, I'm going to ask a question. So
Mm,
this one leader came to know me because I was always engaging in the calls. I was always asking questions on the calls. And so when I met him in person, he knew exactly who I was. I never saw him because the calls are over the phone,
mm,
but he knew who I was. He's like, "Oh, Darren," he gives me a big hug, and we shake hands and all that stuff, right? But I mustered up the courage. So we were talking for a while at the event. So this was after this was actually the opening sort of ceremony. And
mm,
afterwards, everyone's out in the hallway. We're mingling and networking, right? That's basically what we're doing. So I go up to him. I see him. I go up to him and introduce myself. And I didn't ask him at that point, but later on in the conference, I think a day later, I asked him, "What's your rate for coaching? Would you be willing to coach me?" And he said, "Definitely." He says that I charge this amount, and My last coaching session with him is actually next week. We started a coaching after the IMC, after the International Maxwell Conference. And now my last one is with him next week. So this all happened because of attending the IMC, a networking event. And I stayed after when it's a little bit, there's hundreds of people around, but I stayed after because I wanted to network. I wanted to,
Mm.
get to know someone. And I knew him, but I got to know him better, and it led to a coaching relationship.
Wow. I mean, I have to ask you offline who that who that coach is.
I will let you know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Randy, what about you? What was one of maybe a benefit that was unexpected that you experienced from networking?
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of hoping I get that question that Darren answered because I got three. I got
Feel free to
three.
answer it.
I got three networking stories of life-changing events it led to. But to answer the question you gave me, one of the unexpected benefits from networking is lifelong friendship and
Mm.
travel opportunities. So I have met a man at a networking event and ended up developing relationship with him. And I've been to Sweden with him. I've been to Africa, Senegal, Africa with him. I've
Wow.
been to London with him. And we have been ministering over there in those countries like that. And there was I don't know if you guys know, but I also belong to a 12-step program. I don't know if you guys read my book. I was a drug addict. I was on heroin. I did 7 months, 7 years in prison, and I was on heroin for 18 years. And today I have 24 years clean, and I am an active member in the 12-step program, which is really a social setting. There was a Puerto Rican guy that moved here from New York named Gary, and Gary invited me to a 12-step networking meeting, and the main speaker was a Puerto Rican pastor from New York, and he came to speak. I didn't want to go. I was already on my recliner watching watching Netflix movie, and this guy called me, and it was a last minute thing. Oh man, come meet my friend. I believe you guys will hit it off. And I said, "Oh, Gary," I put my socks and shoes on and I drove to Hollywood from the San Fernando Valley. That's like a 25-minute drive. And I drove to Hollywood and I heard this guy speak. And I was literally moved from one side of the street to the
Mm.
other side, spiritually, emotionally speaking, to the other side. We became friends. That was in 2008. We are still friends. He's gonna come to my house in about 2 weeks and stay with me for a week. Now, he's the one that published my book. He is the one that ordained me. As a pastor, he is the one where I moved to New York in 2010, 2011 to start my ministerial licensing training. I had to leave LA to go to New York, and now my life is completely different because of this man. But and then I got two more stories that are equally as life impacting, open my eyes and become a better version of myself because of these three people that I met. But I just wanted to give you one short story for time's sake.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love both stories, and unfortunately, I don't have one of these powerful stories yet. Right, the power of yet. I do. I have, however, experienced a huge difference in my life once I had a better understanding of what networking is, and I forgot the idea that I need to share, business cards, and opened up my eyes to and to my understanding to making connection with others, because one of the things that I also want to mention, and I want both of you to touch on if possible, is that a lot of people think networking happens when you get invited or when you attend a networking event, and that's not true. Networking doesn't just happen at those events. It is not a cookie cutter. That's the only time you can meet people, right? There are other opportunities, ample opportunities. I mean, Darren, the first time you and I met was over I had created what was it, a Q&A on Facebook for the upcoming workshop, and we had, we had conversation, and after that moment we have done so much business together, you and I. And it was just that was it 15 minutes of talking, you and I, that we were clicked, and we found so much work that could be done, so much collaborative effort that can be done. And how did you, Randy, and I meet? And we did our podcast together, and we talked about your book through Darren. Do you see where I'm getting?
Yeah.
Networking isn't and I want to make sure I clarified this to people who are going to be watching this later, is that who think that networking is only when you go to a networking event or a conference of such. And that is not the case. And I would love for you, if you have specific examples maybe of where you did actually meet someone or other people, and you've established a relationship, a connection, and you built deeper roots with individuals, and collaborated, or whatever the case may be, but it's not necessarily a huge event. And if you can think of those examples, that would be great, because it'll help our dialogue listeners.
You want me to start?
Sure.
Yeah, I have a story for this one. I watched a movie called Freedom Riders. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Very good movie. And I watched it with the young adults, and the plan was to watch the movie and discuss it and learn from the movie. So I watched the movie. We all watched it together. There was about, I don't know, maybe 10 of us that watched it together. We were all inspired. We was like, man, that's such a great movie. We really liked it. So I was inspired to reach out to Erin Gruwall, who basically the movie is based on, right? That
Mhm.
movie is based on her. And so I found out about her nonprofit organization and reached out to her assistant, had some email exchanges, and said, hey, I want to have Erin come and speak to our young adult group. And her assistant said, well, it's going to cost $1,500. And I'm like, wait, we're a church. I don't have that kind of money, to pay that, to pay the $1,500. So we had some more conversations, and I said, okay, but how about a half an hour, $400? Would that work? And he said, well, let me check around and let me see if we can do that. So to my delight, he agreed, and they agreed. So we had Erin come, and she spoke to the young adults. I had them prepare some questions and in advance, and put all those questions together. And I was basically facilitating the discussion. And I asked the questions to Erin. And instead of her staying for half an hour, I think she stayed for about an hour and a half. And to my surprise, she didn't charge. She waived the fee.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, the experience that these young adults got from that, they saw her movie, and then, a month or two later, she's in the room, not in the room, but it was on a Zoom call. She's on a Zoom call with us, and we're asking questions. At the end, we were able to pray for her, and she was so blessed by that. But that's an experience that they will remember for the rest of their lives. And it was just me taking a risk, reaching out to her organization, knowing I couldn't pay the actual amount. And, and she came and was, I'll never forget that experience. And I know they won't either. So that's one of the things that really impacted my life, I'd say.
Beautiful. And it wasn't just influence for you, it was influence for everybody else that has attended that
That's
event.
right.
Amazing.
That's right. Yeah.
Randy, how about you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There is. I agree with you. They do have conferences and networking events for that purpose to network. And however, you could be on public transportation on a bus and meet someone, exchange a few words, and here comes a spark, and you're exchanging phone numbers, and that could lead into something. There was a tattoo removal program over here. Tattoos are really big in the LA culture. People are getting them all over. Well, they have tattoo removal programs for people who want to take them out. And I had tattoos on both sides of my face, on my chin, around my neck. And in 2000, 2001, that was a 2.5 year process. I removed my tattoos. I mentioned that in my book, and sometimes in my speeches, I mention the freedom that I have now removing the tattoos. And sometimes somebody will come up to me and ask, "What is the process? Can you teach me? Tell me." And I would take them to one because they're all over in LA. But I would take them to one place that has a tattoo removal program
Mm.
incorporated in it, and among other public services like legal counsel, anger management classes, job resumes and preparation, how to do interviews. They have all kinds of services. And the guy, when I took this person to sign up for the tattoo removal program, there was a guy who was second in charge of that building, and I didn't know this, that I known for 40 years since middle school. They call it middle school now. When I was a kid, they called it junior high. So I've known him from junior high. He turned his life around. I turned my life around. He is helping in this role. I gave him one of my books and I said, "Hey man, read this book. Let me know some of your thoughts. Maybe I could come down and teach your staff out of my curriculum how to better handle traumatic people who their clients that they get." So that's one way. The other way is when is through a job. I was working at a job and I got burned out after 5 years, and I always wanted to work for this one drug rehab that has a pretty tall reputation for having good results. And I knew I was a person of integrity and helping people get clean and sober. I always wanted to work for this one place. One of my mentors worked there, and his name was Big Les, and he passed away in 2007 with 19 years clean and sober. And I wanted to be under his guidance, counsel, and influence. So I ended up getting hired there, and I thought I was going to get closer to him and learn everything. Well, there was another gentleman there that I have never, ever, ever even met, and his name was Marco Pardo, and he was the grief specialist. He did miracles. He was the grief specialist that helped people come to closure and a level of acceptance over the loss of a loved one. And
Mm.
I ended up meeting him, and he's been one of my mentors, pouring into me for 1 hour a week for the last 17 years. I don't even work for that place for, I don't know, 8 years now, but me and him still have something very special. And in fact, chapter 11 or 12 in my book is him. It's called Mentorship. That whole chapter
Mm.
is dedicated to the man that I met. So I'm thinking I'm going for one reason, and it ended up being God was allowed me to meet this guy. Many people were gonna get impacted as a result of him pouring growth into my soul.
I love it, especially when your intentions are pure. So much more ends up happening. I love it. I'm going to ask you both about strategies you found that have helped you become more effective with networking. I'm going to ask Darren first. So, what one or more strategies that you found most effective in building and maintaining a professional relationship, either personally, professionally? I'm going to keep it open.
Yeah, I guess for me, one of the things that I try to do at first is find that common ground. What do we have in common? I think when I met you, Nagam, the thing that we had in common was we both liked technology, um, and um, and you know the commonality also was leadership. You know, you were having that workshop, and I became a part of that workshop. And once I find that common ground, I really like to connect with that person, go for coffee, get to know the person a little bit better. And if that turns out well, then continue that connection where I meet with that person, maybe on a monthly basis, every 2 weeks, whatever the time frame is. And that's how I really start to build a relationship with that person. Depends on if it's a business relationship. I still like to do that as well, but by doing that over time, you're able to really see a relationship blossom. I have a young man right now that I'm that I'm. We actually started off in a mentorship program that one of my colleagues organized as part of what's called a community of practice, a project management community of practice. And so we have about 160 members in this community of practice. And she started a mentorship program. And so it's a peer-to-peer mentorship. So it's not me mentoring him or him mentoring me. It's just more we're sharing knowledge. And so we were supposed to do it for 3 sessions, but we both have enjoyed it so much that we're continuing the mentorship. And our last one, he said, "Hey, I've got this really good book for you. I'm going to give it to you the next time we see one another." And so it's like that. I'll ask him questions like, "What are your strengths? So what are you, what do you really, what gets you up in the morning?" So he's like, "You're always asking these really good questions," and so he enjoys that. And but we've built a relationship, and we were only supposed to meet for 3 times. Now we're going on our fourth. We're going to continue to meet, and that's just because there was something there. There was some commonality there. We were able to connect with one another. Yeah.
So finding that common ground and having making it intentional for you to meet with somebody on a few times to get to know them
Yes.
more.
Yes. It has. I think that consistency, and it has to be a few times,
Yeah.
because if not, then it just kind of fizzles out. I met with this person. Sometimes there's not the connection there, so you don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to. But yeah, I
Yeah.
find that connecting multiple times or meeting multiple times helps to foster that relationship.
Great. Randy, same question to you.
Yeah, what was the question?
What strategies have you found helpful in building that professional relationship and networking?
Yeah, I like what Darren said. I wrote that down. Find common ground. I would say I'm a man of simplicity, and I would say saying hello, being friendly, asking questions, and being reciprocal. Not just
Mhm,
one-sided in your
mhm,
thinking, but adding and giving, giving and getting,
Yeah.
giving and getting. So I think being friendly, saying hello, asking tons of questions, which goes to preparation before you meet with someone, and being reciprocal. For me, it's that simple.
Yeah, and it can be different for different people. But I heard one of my colleagues was telling me that when you meet somebody, and you've had this natural conversation and you're talking and you exchange information, don't wait to follow up with them. Follow up with them right away. That was one advice he gave me, because what we as human beings we tend to forget. We have so much on our minds. We get busy with this and that. We forget, we made this relationship. We forget this, we made this contact. So it's that be quick to follow up, and you don't have to do or say anything or ask for anything. You just say hello, it's nice meeting you, introduce yourself, put yourself again in the picture of that, very very short memory that human beings have, and continue that relationship. And I think I found it really helpful because I know I'm forgetful, so it helps that to continue the conversation, even if it's on a text message or messenger or even an email or something. I want to ask one last question, and we're going to be ending a little bit early, but I want to ask one last question about social media for both of you. The same question: what is have either of you leveraged social media or some sort of digital tools to help you um, expand your networking opportunities, or find others, or I don't know, maybe made better connections? I'm going to start with Darren.
Yeah, I post on social media daily, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and as Randy mentioned earlier, I'm a quotes person, so I post a quote every day on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I've also joined some groups. I've joined your group, NAGM, as well, some social media. Um, I've actually joined Randy's group as well. I don't have my own group, but I join other people's groups.
That tells you
And,
something.
yeah. So groups are a powerful way, though, to get to know others, especially if you have a certain interest in something. Like I found out Randy's having a Randy and I think one of his, Randy and Ray are having a workshop on his book, Pain to Power.
Mm.
And I found out about that in his group, right? So if I wasn't a part of that group, I would have known about that. So groups are a powerful way to get to know people and to, have build some relationships. I got to know you and your group as well, and found out about your leadership workshop, attended that, brought some of my friends to it.
Mhm.
But it's a really a powerful way to get to know people.
Awesome. Randy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing Pastor Darren said. That's how we all met. That's how me and
Yeah.
Darren met. So I had, you know what, guys? I had no idea. Look at the rock I've been under. I had no idea we're in the digital world, and I had no idea of the power of social media up until 2018. I did not open up an account until 2018. I was so busy listening to people that had negative opinions about social media is this and that. So I never, from 2006 all the way to 2018. Now, the way I told you, Nagam, when I started embracing and getting a little bit more comfortable in my leadership role, my pastoral role, and I felt, hey, there's something missing here that I need to be current. I need to be more active, and I started social media. And what works in my favor, you guys, is I have an 18-year-old daughter named Sylvia, and my daughter Sylvia is current way more than me. And now, thanks to her, I have a TikTok account, I have an Instagram account, and I have she opened me up the Facebook. The Facebook is the most active. I'm the most active on Facebook, and it's the easiest for me to navigate through. TikTok is also pretty active, where I leave 30 to 45-second inspirational, motivational talks covering a variety of topics. I just know how to go when it comes to doing that stuff. And Instagram is the one that I'm still behind the eight ball. I'm still learning, and my daughter has helped me with that. I have a LinkedIn profile, but I'm not real active in that either. But I think this is a digital world, and I wanna have a digital presence and use social media platform as a force for good, spreading good positivity, love, being part of the community, the social media community, and putting out good messages.
I'm so happy you have your 18-year-old tech master on hand, Randy. I can tell you need help. Your volume keeps going in and out. But I do want to, our time's almost up. So I want to thank both of you. This was really insightful, and there's never enough time when we're talking about leadership and anything surrounding leadership, and networking is one giant term that I found myself learning about recently, and I would love to continue that process. So I want to invite everyone that will be watching this to continue the conversation. We've got this, and I ended the this conversation with the question about social media, because we've got the world open to us. It doesn't have to end with, see, Darren, you're in Canada, Randy, you're in LA, right? Kim, who's joining us today as a an audience member, she's in Ohio, and Kim and I know each other from our Toastmaster club, and I'm in Michigan, and these are the doors that we have open to us, so we don't have to stop the conversation just because something ends, right? We could do it over Wi-Fi, we could do it globally. So I want to invite everyone to continue this conversation about leadership and about networking in the comments in our Facebook group, and I'm going to be posting this again onto our on my page as well, and as well as my personal account, because it is such an important topic, because I'm in the process of learning, and I love helping others learn as well. I want people to know that networking isn't that tough, people. It's not something that you have to be afraid of. And then look at me, I'm talking to myself, just so you know. It's not something you have to be afraid of. It's not something you have to be shy of. Open the conversation, talk to somebody, get that connection going, get that relationship going, because it's not about the ask, it's about building the relationship. So I want one last word from each of you before we end. Darren, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on networking and leadership?
Networking and leadership. It's just putting yourself out there. Like you said, Nag, I'm a person maybe a bit shy, but just go and show up at an event. If you've been asked to come to an event, go and show up at that event. I'll give you one example. I know I gotta go quick. I became a part of Toastmasters, and I was okay with public speaking, but I didn't like the networking part of it, where you mingle afterwards and all those things. But I forced myself to go every week, and then eventually it wasn't as scary as it was in the beginning. So putting yourself, get outside of your comfort zone, I would say.
Love it. Thank you. Randy?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think
Randy, maybe come closer to your laptop so we could hear you better.
Okay, can you hear me?
Bit better. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no, I think the same thing, man. The more you get out of your comfort zone and you repeat something, the greater the confidence you're gonna get in that very thing. I think networking, I think there's that we could get help by watching YouTube videos or even practicing in the mirror. Or the other one is go to a networking event with a friend who has been to a couple already, kind of tag
Mm,
along and just watch and watch what he
yeah.
so my first networking events has been with somebody else who was far ahead of me, and I simply observed him. The other one is practicing in the mirror of eye contact, what I would say, and as silly as I will feel from
Yeah.
time to time, I stood there and I did it. And then YouTube videos, watching how to go ahead and engage in meaningful conversation other than surface conversation. That's how I was able to learn and then grow into the confidence where I could talk to a woman in Michigan and a man in Canada and a woman in Ohio because trust me, for me it was a self-esteem thing and low self-worth thing where I felt I wasn't even worthy to talk to somebody that maybe looked like they were important, had money, had a position, had a title, they were in the
Mm-hmm.
real estate or a pastor.
Wearing a suit.
Yeah, wearing a suit, a white man. There was a time where I was conditioned and limited in my way of thinking because everybody in my family taught us you only stick with your own kind. Mexicans, Latinos,
Yeah.
the Brown brothers. You stick. No, we don't relate to anybody else, and that didn't set well with me, and I had to learn the language of other cultures and other people, and that was through practice, trying to putting myself out there, feeling silly,
Yeah.
talking to somebody. What do you do? Hi, my name is Randy, and now I am very comfortable in almost or just about any social setting that exists. I'm with it.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, both. I think you put it really well. Get out your comfort zone. I think Chris Robinson says, get out the house, right?
Get out the house.
Get out the house.
That's right.
Get out of your comfort zone, take some risk and practice. I love both of those messages. Take baby steps. That's what I tell myself. Take baby steps, go and, do it transitionally, go in to an event. You don't have to say anything the first time. The next time you maybe try to talk to one person, and then over time graduate into an effective networker if you have that fear of talking to others. And I love what you said, Randy, about watching others. Take a friend with you. Somebody once told me, take a friend with you. It'll help. If you don't find someone to talk to, then you've got your buddy. So there is so much out there, but you don't get to experience it until you get out of that comfort zone, get out the house and go find a networking event. I want to thank you both very, very much. And again, and invite everyone to continue the conversation. And I want to thank Kim for sticking around. And I did want to have time for questions, but unfortunately, we're going to have to continue the conversation on social media. So stick any question you have on comments. Randy and Darren, thank you so much and have a wonderful
Thank
night.
you. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye, guys.
All right.